I am proud to work at NASA's Johnson Space Center, but today we need to talk about traffic safety.
In 2007, Brad Choate was killed in traffic just outside NASA's Gilreath Center gate. His family is still grieving their loss and continues to remind us that the convenience of automobiles came at a fatal cost for them. And let us not forget that in 2018, Ty Cannon lost his life to injuries sustained in a traffic accident, also at NASA's Gilreath Center fence line. On Bay Area Boulevard at Saturn Lane, a 19-year-old was killed on his way home from working at the grocery store.
That was about 8 years ago. His name was Jake. The lady I worked with every once in a while, it was her son's best. The weather has made it in a way. And I used to put flowers on it. I think the hurricane took care of that. Anyway, I'm going to have to go get the next kiddos.
A block away, another road cross marked only CTE. In 2015, Carlos Vargas was taken from his family in a school zone in sight of Space Center Intermediate, a fire station, and of course NASA Johnson Space Center. In late April, a vehicle crossed oncoming traffic, a bike lane, a sidewalk, and stopped against a tree in front of the Johnson Space Center fence line. Most traffic fatalities are not marked and memorials are eventually removed, so these are just examples, but are they isolated? Why are they clustered around Johnson Space Center? Is there a root cause? Let's pause for some trivia. How many of these electric rovers did NASA's Apollo program land on the moon in the 1970s? Think you know? The answer later in this video. Some vehicles are more inherently dangerous than others. For example, cars, trucks, and sport utility vehicles are associated with more than 4,000 fatalities each year in Texas. A Texas driver is killed every couple of hours on average, 2 pedestrians per day, and a bicyclist every week. There is no day that someone doesn't die in Harris County traffic. At NASA, these vehicles are referred to as authorized conveyances, and they set the acceptable threshold for safety risk at Johnson Space Center, where the theology of car culture is enshrined in the traffic regulations. Johnson Space Center welcomes bumpers of all and incompatible heights, but let's explore the unauthorized conveyances. There are many kinds of human-scale vehicles. The fatality rate for these vehicles is negligible by comparison. NASA traffic regulations exclude a broad class of alternative vehicle technologies. This woman is riding a bicycle, so that's authorized. This man is riding a unicycle, so that's unauthorized. This bicycle is harder to see because it's recumbent, but I'm guessing it's authorized. This recumbent is a tricycle, not on the white list. The original bicycle, a unicycle with a training wheel, authorized. This bike doesn't have a seat, so I guess it's unauthorized. Standing on the bike pedals actually is not authorized in bike rules, even if some situations require that. This tricycle has elliptical pedals and no seat, unauthorized. Elliptical bike, no seat, unauthorized. This vehicle met Department of Transportation regulations when it was manufactured, and the newest regulations aren't important, so it's authorized. This vehicle is older than DOT. Clearly unauthorized. A bike with an aerodynamic cover. I don't know how you stop, but it's authorized. A bike with a windscreen. Authorized, I think. A bike without the extra bits. Unauthorized, although I love how easily it can engage with traffic. An electric unicycle repackaged as a bicycle. Awkward, but authorized. A bike with a trailer. That's not authorized in bike rules. Obviously not for safety reasons. I put my toddlers in one of these. Using the authorized alternative puts one more automobile in the pedestrian zone. No pedals on that bicycle. Unauthorized. Monotire has a seat and the handlebars, but that's a tank tread instead of wheels, so that's unauthorized. That motorcycle doesn't have a back wheel. Probably unauthorized. I think quadrupeds are not on the technology whitelist, but when there's a rodeo, there's a way. Okay, the rover really should be authorized. Then there's medical mobility, unauthorized. I should mention that medical mobility at JSC is handled by exception and needs to be coordinated in advance of your arrival. The Department of Justice guidance for anyone complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act is that a Segway can be reasonably accommodated indoors. But you knew that. DOJ identified an important principle. People are not cookies. You are safest on the vehicle that you are the most familiar and comfortable with. The idea that everyone learned to ride a bike when we were a kid presumes that we all grew up in the same conditions.
You are the automobile driver of tomorrow.
Is a bicycle somehow safer than alternative designs?
I'm good. Yeah. Keep up the good work. I keep wanting to take these things off. I got my foot caught in it.
I also have to mention that the first pedestrian victim of a self-driving car was walking a bicycle across an intersection. The car saw the obstacle but didn't classify it as a person walking or a person riding. The situation was too rare to have been in the training set. At Johnson Space Center, self-driving cars are authorized, and bicycle regulations require walking through crosswalks. Actually, human-scale traffic of any variety is part of the solution because it calms traffic and cues drivers to be alert. Pretending that an automobile is not a high-energy weapon that can kill people, and that human-scale vehicles are, would be pretend safety. This desperate approach to traffic management was followed a month later by the demise of Arnold the Building 14 armadillo in the same pedestrian zone between crosswalks that I use routinely, and so we must ask ourselves, why was a driver inattentive? Is it because they were stupid or reckless and they can't read the sign? Or do drivers perceive so much safety they think they can indulge in a little inattention? Chuck Marone, a civil engineer, land use planner, and founder of Strong Towns, says the street design communicates the speed limit. A forgiving design accommodates higher speed. We act safer when we perceive risk. Features like narrower lanes and human-scale traffic engage drivers' attention and communicate a lower prudent speed. And in the months after an enforcement action ends, traffic returns to the normal speed that the street is designed for. Recently, NASA's Johnson Space Center was in the news for holding its contractors to the highest of safety standards.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, just following up on that last question, we're not getting a straight answer to why aren't Boeing here? I know you all want to be diplomatic, but can you kind of give us an open, honest assessment of, is there a kind of healing process that now lies ahead? This kind of should be a sort of moment of celebration, but we don't have the Boeing folks here at the table. There's no explanation why. It doesn't appear that there's joyful unity, if there is. How do you folks fix the rift? Is there a rift? Is there damage being done to the relationship? Thank you.
So I'll answer again. You know, we talked to Boeing. They said, hey, we'd like NASA to take the press brief.
Safety conversations can be contentious, but with lives at stake, it is imperative that these conversations happen. A celebrated cornerstone of JSC safety culture is that individuals need to call attention to unsafe situations and follow up to make sure that the safety conversation is happening. Especially because that conversation can be uncomfortable, maybe not starting with a public-facing YouTube video. Johnson Space Center is proud of its status as an OSHA VPP star worksite. So could Johnson Space Center and Clear Lake be a safer place to live and work? 10 years ago, the Federal Highway Administration was recommending that a street could be 9 feet wide, and a highway should be 12 feet wide. Today, the National Association of City Transportation Officials believes that urban streets should be 10 feet wide. NACTO cites a study which found that every additional foot of lane width adds about 5 miles per hour to the flow rate of traffic. Of course, we wouldn't outright parochially ban any specific serviceable vehicle technology, just try to use it more safely. Carlos Vargas was killed in a lane that was 11 feet wide. That's wide enough to accommodate the trucks at the fire station across the street. Jake was killed in a 12-foot wide lane. That's about 12 feet. Lanes by the Gilruth Center on Space Center Boulevard, where Ty and Brad met their end, are 12 feet wide. That's the standard lane size for highways in the United States. The posted speed on this highway is 75 miles per hour. The lane that Arnold died in is more than 13 feet wide. That is 4 generous feet of extra cushion, which could, for example, be shared with human-scale traffic. Lanes on this street are still 11 feet wide after accommodating bidirectional bike
11
lanes.
feet.
A street that is wider than a highway requires continuous and visible enforcement presence. By the way, we have an awesome security team. These guys deserve purposeful work that is aligned with national objectives. Occasionally, I go to events at NASA's Gilruth Center. No one has found fault with my riding etiquette, and my vehicle isn't on a recall list. In an authorized conveyance, like this automobile that has 4 empty seats, I can use this lazy back road to exit the property. There's the daycare and the empty bike lane, where a security truck drove behind me. That situation felt dangerous, exactly as though the officer had weapon drawn and safety off. Let's formally analyze the risk for this route. Encounters with automobiles at 25 miles an hour are not usually fatal, and the bike lane makes an encounter less likely. Although the encounter with a large truck is more likely to be fatal, and if the truck is driving in the bike lane, then there's no separation of traffic, I prefer to take the safest route, so this is the route I would choose. But my pedestrian scale conveyance isn't authorized on this route. Riders of unauthorized conveyances need to exit the property. They can use this narrow sidewalk to reach Space Center Boulevard. The bike path is across this crosswalk with a signal that hasn't worked in more than a year. You'd think Johnson Space Center is in Houston, but no local jurisdiction is responsible for this signal. It belongs to the state of Texas. Then I need to cross Space Center Boulevard again, both coming and going between the 2 road crosses. A total of 3 crossings. Analyzing the risk for this route, traffic fatalities happen, and the only control really is riding very carefully. But this is the authorized route that Johnson Space Center makes available to every conveyance, except cars and pedal bicycles. In a healthy safety culture, we all look out for each other's safety. Why is a system that puts safety under a microscope actually elevating the holistic safety risk by cleansing the ecosystem of diversity? For human-scale traffic, presence is essential to safety. Bike-to-Work Day attracts about 3 people per 1,000, although most of the workforce lives within a few miles. Bicycles appear out of nowhere when accommodating bicycles isn't part of the daily drive. Okay, how many quarter-ton electric rovers did NASA's Apollo program land on the moon in 1971 and 1972? Did you guess 1, or 2, or 3? Beginning with Apollo 15, each time NASA's Apollo landed on the moon, it took another rover. So there are presently 3 undrivable cars on the moon. But Apollo was a race. Today's challenge is a sustainable return and building toward a visit to Mars. Will Johnson Space Center be able to unite and dare to explore alternative technical approaches? Johnson Space Center isn't out in the country now. Clear Lake isn't just roads anymore. The region is accumulating many infrastructure investments that make it significantly more accessible to human-scale traffic, spurred by the COVID-19 lockdown. The centerpiece of Clear Lake's latest development, the reserve, is a hike and bike path. El Dorado Boulevard almost has a bike path stretching from Space Center to Clear Lake City. Fresh concrete and asphalt on the Bay Area bike path. Exploration Green has completed the first 5 phases. An underpass connects Clear Lake High School with the University of Houston's Clear Lake campus. The Red Bluff bike path extends almost to Seabrook. With the Egret Bay Boulevard bike path, I can take sidewalks all the way to South Shore Harbor. Even Highway 3 is adapting, and Gemini has quiet bike lanes. Will Johnson Space Center join efforts to make Clear Lake a safer place to live and work? The Space Center has worked for 4 years to open up transportation options, so change seems imminent. Johnson Space Center is constructed with a walkable campus at its core. Could traffic be less like a shopping mall? Follow this story. Click subscribe below.